Hey, what's up guys? Node Investor here, bringing a weekly update on these markets, kind of the weekly recap, but this is also corresponding with the end of the month. We are now officially into December. November, what a doozy of a month it was. So much happened. We started the month very flat, very tight, wondering where prices were going to go next. And we had the big breakdown, the dramatic fall lower, and we're finding a little bit of a low here near term. So most people are probably happy that November is over with, past us. We'll see where December lies and what happens this month. But I want to talk about the near-term picture, some things to look at here over the next day or two, as well as heading into next week. And I'll be doing a separate video, but there's a common question I'm getting a lot right now, and it is, was that the low? Was that the low, the bottom of the bear market? And I'm going to go over into many reasons why it's very difficult to tell if that is the low, and it's always hindsight. We won't know for sure until months later, but there's some signs to look for, and we'll do a separate video and just kind of look at that, talk about the 2014 bear market, how it compares, and some other markets and how they bottomed out in the past, and just to get some lessons from that that'll help you. But as many of you guys know, I have been adding long-term positions again to Bitcoin for the first time in a very long time, and I was really just waiting for that pattern that we were all watching, this very narrow type pattern, to decide which way it was going to break. It was leaning bearish, and so I was just being patient, waiting. We saw that big break lower, and so I figured this is a good time to start scaling in here. I'm able to pick up BTC at a substantial discount to what it was just a few weeks ago, and so it's my own kind of personal risk tolerance. I understand that that may not be the low. It could go down to 3K or even lower, but from a risk tolerance long-term perspective, I'm starting to take some positions and add some fresh capital in. But more on that coming. Today I want to talk about the markets here near term. I want to look at a few names that are moving, and we'll take a look at the coin market cap, see how the week transpired. Zcash added to Coinbase. There's just always something fun here in the crypto space, never a dull moment. Before we get started, as we're kicking off a new month, I am adding new members to our Node Insiders private group. It's a community of traders, investors. We talk everything from charts to news to crypto related, and we even have separate channels for those of you that are trading stock or forex. And so it's a lively community. If you want to join us, sign up is open now. The group officially kicks off on December 3rd for the next round. There's a video here to learn more about what it is. I'll put a link to this in the video notes below. And I've also done a discount for this month, both for our renewing members. They get a substantial discount this month. If you are a past member of the Slack community, go check it out. I've posted the renewal links inside of the group chat room there. But for new members that want to join us, if you want to check it out, if you've been thinking about it, this is a good time to do it because it is on a discount this month, so you can go ahead and kind of get a look inside and see what we do here. But this is very much for those that are actively in the markets as well, and I think you'll learn a lot more from that. There's private streams, there's educational content, all that good stuff. So go check that out, nodeinvestor.com/training. So let's take a quick look at the coin market cap, get a weekly recap, and then we'll go ahead and deep dive into some of these charts here. So looking at the $1 billion plus club, not a lot of movement overall in this group. I did make quite a few trades this week, but the majority of them were in the mid to small cap names. That's where we saw most of the action over the last few days. But looking at Bitcoin, you can see in the last week, basically flat, has bounced back nicely. We'll look at the chart here shortly, but over the last 24 hours, moving up off that low. And most of the other names are following suit here, relatively about the same percentage-wise. But on the week, Bitcoin Cash SV were very volatile, continue to be very volatile here. EOS, big hit this week to the downside, breaking some support, moving lower, but everything else just kind of relatively flat. There was a lot of volatility in between that over the last 7 days. And then moving further down the list, if we look at the billion to the $100 million club, there's a lot longer list, but you can see here some pretty wide ranges across the board. But you can see over the last couple of days some big moves. Waves has been on a big rally. We saw Factum continue to move higher. There's been a few names. Yesterday, Theta just blew through the roof, was up like 80-90% at one point very quickly and pulling back. Basic attention was moving for a while. So there's been some volatility. nothing really sustainable. It's been relatively quick trades. I traded Mana for a quick move. I was lucky enough to be in Zcash, jumped in a position the day before Coinbase added that and hit my target on the trade, so I banked that. We'll take a look at that chart. So a few trades to be had, no doubt, but it's good to see that there is some green across the board, a nice change from the last few weeks where it was just red, deep red everywhere. Looking at the coin market cap total value, you can see we're bouncing off the lows here a little bit. The lows were down around that 115 level at one point. We peaked here a few days ago at around 142, 143, and bouncing back here a little bit. So in that 130 zones, but still a far cry from where we were just a few weeks ago as we started November over that $200 billion mark. So still bouncing off these lows here, making a little bit of a low. Is it the low? Hard to say at this point. I'm taking it one day at a time. From a trading perspective, we're seeing higher lows, which is a positive pattern to be seen off the lows, but there are some overhead resistance levels to be keeping an eye on. But all around, was good to see some recovery from that low here this week. The BTC dominance remains relatively unchanged, sitting around that 53% still, but let's go take a look at those charts and deep dive this a little bit more. So looking at Bitcoin, in summary, the action is positive. I've taken a positive stance. I continue to hold. I held through this pullback here. I did hedge a little bit with a short trade once this head and shoulders started to materialize, but on my other account was just holding through. And there was a couple of key levels to be watching. We're seeing a decent bounce here today. And so going into the weekend, over the next few days, these are the key levels to be keeping an eye on here. So first, let me show the fib analysis that I was looking at here. And if we do a retracement from the move, the weekly low to the swing high that we saw, and ultimately this formed a inverse head and shoulder pattern, or excuse me, a head and shoulders pattern, which did break down with that neckline being right around there. So once it got below that 4190, 4200 level, really started to accelerate to the downside. The key level that I wanted to make note of, let me clear this here real quick for us, is this 618 retracement level. On a rally, if it pulls back much further below that, usually that's the end of the big uptrend. It just kind of negates the big strength. Ideally, you want it to hold above that. 50% would have been nice. 382 is very strong, but 618 for me is kind of the most I'd like to see a retracement come in at. And you can see that's exactly where prices held. We saw a couple of wicks, a couple of tests to the downside from that level, and it held above this big candle. Look at the big volume that came in here once the move really started to get going. And so you did not want to see that candle undercut. It would have really negated this whole thing. The other thing to note was, if you do a measured move on this head and shoulders pattern, you can do a technical projection to where that breakdown may take us, and look at where that lines up almost perfectly with that 618 level, which is where prices held. It hit the downside targets. It started to bounce around there yesterday. I was waiting to see if this 10 EMA on the 1 hour would be cleared to the upside, but all around was looking positive. That was a place to take some secondary entries for a continuation of the trend upwards on that 4-hour chart. And we're seeing that now. Yes, here earlier in the morning, you saw a big move higher, and you're continuing to see prices push up, which is very positive. And it's confirming that this low we saw here yesterday was a good higher low, a good retest of support. And now that's the level to be watching. So on the downside this weekend, we do not want to see prices break below 4K again. This would negate this little low. That would also negate this volume candle that we saw here, pushing prices higher. They did pause right into that 4200 level, which was the breakout point, but now they're pushing higher as I record this. So all around positive action. If it pulls back, makes a higher low, that 4K level is really what I want to see held. Now on the upside, let me go to the daily chart, because this is even more important to be noting here on the daily chart. If we look at the big picture, I'm going to move over to Bitstamp here on the daily chart. But if we look at the big picture, technically it's still in a downtrend. So it's very important to note that the daily chart is very much in a downtrend. The moving averages are still inverted. Prices are still below the moving averages. So that's important to note. However, as I pointed out in the last video, the MACD was starting to tick up. That's gone into the green now. It's confirming that loss of selling momentum. The RSI is also ticking higher. That's positive. What I ultimately want to see though is a close, a daily close into that 4,300 level. We may get that today, and ideally we will, because it'll do two things for us here. For Bitcoin, prices have not been able to close above that 4,300 level since November 22nd, right? So that's, you can see there's been a few wicks, a few attempts into that range, but on a daily close level, it has not been able to clear this little zone here. Getting above that would clear this resistance. So a daily close would start to change this downtrend pattern that it's in, and it would also confirm this higher low that we saw set yesterday, right? So we saw that red candle pull back. It went right to the 10 EMAs. Prices pulled back right from there and potentially have set a higher low. If it starts to move higher past yesterday's high and can close above this near-term resistance, that'll confirm this as a higher low. It'll also get prices back above the 10 EMA on that daily chart. And this is really the beginning of trying to turn this trend, right? It made a low here a few days ago, bounced, pulling back, making a higher low. And this is really the way trends begin. They start to stair-step their way higher, they test resistance, they pull back, they make a better, higher support level, and so forth. On the lower time frames, plenty of trades to be made, no doubt. On the daily chart, still got to remain cautious as we have not yet turned the corner completely, but the signs are there. It's looking positive here in the near term. So all around, I'm still leaning positive. I'm still continuing to look for those alt BTC trades, and I'm holding Bitcoin. So I'm just kind of looking for those names that are outperforming Bitcoin and will increase the Satoshi value. And until this breaks down, until we see a confirmed reversal of that trend, I'm going to stay with it. So that's what I'm looking at. Liking the action here so far. Just keep an eye on those resistance levels. That's really the key levels to be paying attention to here over the next day or two. So let's go look at a few other names here. There's plenty of stuff moving, plenty of things setting up. Let me go through just a handful of names. So starting with some of the larger cap names, looking at ETH versus USD Tether here on Binance. It is trying to put in a similar pattern here. You can see we had the extreme low, which was a double bottom test here a few days ago on this 4-hour chart, just like Bitcoin. We had that rally. Wasn't quite as strong as Bitcoin. It certainly has been lagging, but we have set a higher low now, and it looks like it wants to get going again. If we look at it versus BTC, you can see it's still very much range bound and has not really been outperforming. So between the two, I still would rather be in Bitcoin over ETH. And until this changes, I'm gonna keep that posture here. So ETH has certainly been underperforming. Many of the large cap names have been underperforming, and really the action has been in the small and mid cap names here over the last few days. And so not a whole lot of change on the Ethereum side. If we look at Ripple, I'm gonna go Ripple versus BTC here first. I was watching this downtrend, but it just continues to trend lower, has not turned the corner there. On that daily chart, it's still technically holding above this breakout point, has tested this level in the last 3 days, but not a lot of upside follow through just yet. The positive is the volume is declining on this pullback. It's still technically above this support level, but these EMAs are now starting to kind of roll over. So prices really need to start pushing higher and getting above this near-term resistance, and that'll really turn the corner and really paint a picture for a bullish flag there. But right now it's really getting long in the tooth here, so it needs to turn the corner here near term. But again, a large cap name that is not outperforming Bitcoin here over the last couple of days. Stellar Lumens, number 4 on the market cap, quietly just edging its way higher. Here it is at number 4. Now, to be fair, it's a distant 4 from ETH and Ripple. Looking at the coin market cap here, you can see Bitcoin, Ripple still above ETH, 15 billion versus 12 billion, and then Stellar, here at 3 billion. So it has to quadruple to edge out ETH, but still the fact that it's number 4 above Bitcoin Cash, EOS, Litecoin, and some of these others is significant. So has had a strong move here. Looking at it near term, it is really starting to consolidate here in an interesting manner, in a bullish manner. You can see here the prices are just edging higher. There has been a series of higher lows. This is the 4-hour chart versus BTC, and it is another Coinbase potential. If I had to guess, I would say they'd add Lumens before they added Cardano. So this is where I'm thinking the next one will be, and it'll be interesting to see if that can start to rally here over the next couple of weeks in anticipation of that. But right now it is sitting tight, trying to hold above this rising support line, testing resistance. So one to keep an eye on here this weekend for a potential breakout versus Bitcoin. Looking at Litecoin, Litecoin just continues to rally higher, pausing here a little bit, making a little bit of a double top here on this 4-hour chart, lower RSI, so one to watch here. Gonna see if it can take out this most recent high here on that 4-hour chart, but has had a pretty decent move versus BTC, pulling back, making a higher low. Now we want to see if this can show us some trend continuation and break into new relative highs here versus BTC. So that 0.84 level is really the level I'll be watching here over the next couple of days versus Bitcoin. Taking a bigger picture view, looking at that daily chart, it is looking positive. The daily EMAs are finally starting to cross back up, and so prices all around remain in a positive stance, positive posture here, kind of signifying that maybe we did see that low here. At least in the near term, a good low has been set, and we'll see how high this takes us. Next resistance level, though, it's got a significant level to be clearing, and that is right around that 877, 879 level. You can see that was prior support back here. It's also this recent swing high here from early November, and so that's really the upside target. If this continues higher, I'd be watching that level as your next upside target. So looking at Zcash, now Zcash had a nice move here. That was the Coinbase listing. I did jump on this one prior to the Coinbase listing, but that was because of the technical action I was seeing. We had this run up, we had this nice consolidation here, and really what I was watching was this price action starting to turn the corner. It had set a good low, and once it started to edge up, I jumped in on it there, was watching this resistance here, which it actually pulled back from that, didn't hit my stop, so it held up okay, but it came pretty close, and I stayed with it. And then yesterday had that big push higher. I was in the middle of a live stream with my group. We were going over different charts, and all of a sudden Zcash just starts pushing higher. I'm going, what's going on here? That's got to be news. One of the members said, yep, it is news. It's the Coinbase. And so my upside target was this blue line here. I was looking for on this initial trade, I was just looking for a push back up to the upper end of that range. You can see it had been in a big consolidation range here for a while, so I was thinking my upside target is just really the top of that range. And so when we saw that big wick on the news, certainly sold into that, banked the profits, very quick trade on that. Since then, we are seeing a constructive pullback. It's still looking pretty good from the bigger picture. If you look at this 4-hour chart, it's just kind of setting a nice little bull flag type of pullback. You've seen this quiet volume as prices come back into these EMA pairs, and here they are trying to set another support level. So I'd be looking at another potential secondary entry here, a retest of that level, likely pushing through. Above that, the next major resistance is around that 243 level, and so pretty good potential here from a risk reward perspective, something I'm going to be keeping an eye on here over the next couple of days. So that's going to do it, guys. There are a few other names to be keeping an eye on. I won't go through all the charts here, but take a look at Stratus, take a look at Basic Attention, even Neo trying to set up a little bit of a low here. There are some setups still forming out there, names to be watching, to keep an eye on here over the next few days. Some of the small mid-cap names are showing the biggest moves. I saw Mana, we saw Waves, and so plenty of action, but again, be patient, don't overtrade. The big picture is still cautious because it's still technically in a downtrend, but near term seeing some positive action. So I'm liking what I'm seeing here in the short run here. So appreciate you guys watching. I will see you all on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend. Till next time, take care, everyone.